right? That's part of cloud computing. We know it almost, Samuel, it's almost like you've grown up with it. You never thought about it, but there's sometimes when some companies want to do on-premise because of that. Okay, so that is working beautifully. I've got that running. I have the YouTube, and let's get started. So my goal tonight is to do an overview of what's due for Monday and Wednesday, and for basically almost the entire semester, which is not much. I'm already getting I'm missing you already. So let's do this. Let me share my screen. And you see my screen here. I have so many things up here that I don't want. And then I'll go to a web browser. So I know that I'm on the internet here. And this is section J, I know here. So let's do this. Let's go to what's due. And I'll go to what's due. I'll go on the edit mode to see what you have is what's due. So basically, this is good for what's due for explanations. March 25th, we talked about the quiz Tech 3 cloud and the computing assignment found in Wiley Plus. And this will be covered on the next exam. We know that I've asked you to look at 2 companies, or what I call vendors, that are basically main suppliers for cloud computing. One is Microsoft. They call their product Azure. And the other one is Amazon, which we're all familiar with. And they call their service AWS, standing for Amazon Web Services. So you will possibility have an open, not only have questions about in the multiple choice about from the readings on Tech 3 cloud and cloud computing, but I wanted you to read through these 2 sites as well to be able to know what is cloud computing, are the characteristics of cloud computing, what are the benefits, and I'm using cloud computing, the initial CC. And basically, we can know that cloud computing is on-demand services. We've used it in the class, right? Cloud computing as well when we did the automated trading systems. What we had here, where we were, the types of cloud computing is public, private, and hybrid. So, Zachary John, do you have a Gmail account?
Yeah.
Do you have a Gmail account? So
Yeah, I
that
do.
Gmail account is basically, is that being hosted in the cloud?
Um,
That's a
yeah.
good question for the exam. Is Gmail, your Gmail account, hosted in the cloud? And the way that you can even answer that question always for the characteristic, Zachary, is ask yourself this question: do I need the internet to gain access to it?
Yeah.
If I need, so you can put that in your notes, if I need to gain access via the internet,
It's in the cloud.
that means it's cloud computing.
But
What does cloud computing mean? Cloud computing, what is the cloud? We saw the eclipse the other day, right? That's not the cloud, but basically the cloud, all it means is there's another computer, there's another server that's hosting. And how do we get access to that? Is another company hosting it, which is via a browser. If I have to go via a browser to get to a site, that is cloud computing. Now, cloud computing can be public, private, or hybrid, right? It can be public, private, or hybrid. In the public, private, or hybrid, by default, Samuel, what is usually cloud computing? Public, private, or hybrid?
Is it public?
Public. You have a Gmail account, right? It's public. How much does Gmail cost you, Samuel? You're my accountant.
Free for now.
It's free, zero. It's free for now, it's zero. So basically, what is the cheapest for if you were, let's say, Google's CFO at one time, you would say, number one, what's going to cost us less to host for all those free accounts, hybrid, private, or public? You know, public is going to be the least expensive for Google. Why? Because they are me and you, and let's say everybody in this class that has a Gmail, let's just even say a Gmail account, let alone not even a Drive and so forth. A Gmail account is basically sharing computers. We could be on the same computer even. You know, they must have thousands and thousands of computers, right? Probably Google has the most computers as a company than anyone, probably. Just think about Google, right? Just think about YouTube, right? How many billions of videos there are, right? I'm putting my videos on Google every time I teach, right? Think about it, right? Going live, I'm putting there, and how much are they charging me for that? I know that I'm going to take it as public. What does that mean? That I'm sharing their cloud or their computer with others. Is it password protected? Yes, but it is less possibly secure than having what they call a private cloud computing, meaning that if I were in the United States and I were the Department of the Defense and you, Samuel, I hired you as their auditor, one of the first questions you would ask is that data sensitive? Some of the data of the Department of Defense. And of course, Samuel, you would say what? Yes, right? We don't want all our information out on the internet. Already people know it, and already there's spies, right? Internally and externally. So what the Department of Defense would probably go to Google or to Amazon or Microsoft and say, listen, we'll give you a private cloud computing environment. And that means that we won't be publicly sharing the same server. We won't be publicly sharing the same lines to gain access. We want it to be private. So that's the most expensive. And it will be that it's at least likely to be hacked. Completely I can't say 100%, but less likely than the public. Hybrid in that case is a combination. Some data, let's say in the Department of Defense, you know, their job postings, possibly their basically commercials, their marketing purposes to recruit people. Basically, we can put that on the public area. So that's what they call hybrid, that part of my data can be private on a private server, not applicable to everyone, to be more encrypted, the data, harder to break. A lot of times in the public, my data goes through. When I send you an email, Samuel, and say, you know, come to class or something, or send out an email saying April 17th is my exam, right? My text could go out as ASCII text that somebody could pick up that text and read it right away. In private, even the text itself, when it's being passed, is encrypted already. It's going to be harder. Impossible to break? No, but it'd be harder. Now I have types of cloud services where I have something called AAS. And what does that stand for? When I was thinking about it, we talked about it before, is that's right. That's infrastructure as a service. The P is platform as a service. The AAS is as a service. And SaaS is software. And they're all as a service. And as a service means what? In this case, Samuel, it means cloud, it means through a browser. Now, when we were doing, if you remember in this case, Roberto, you remember the NinjaTrader that we were using before? Does that come to mind? When we're doing automated trading systems, Roberto, did that come to mind to you?
Yeah.
As a class, how do we get to it? How do we use NinjaTrader as a class?
Like through software.
Through software, and what do we have to do? What did you have to do to get to it? Did you have to go through the internet?
Well, yeah, of course.
Of course. But it wasn't me, of course, because they had NinjaTrader also in the lab, installed in the lab. But I made it, Roberta, that we didn't have to go to the lab. If you wanted, you could, but as myself and us, we did it together as a remote service. And what was it? It was cloud. It was through a browser. And we used the platform. Another word for platform is operating systems. So Liam, you remember that do you remember what operating system NinjaTrader was using?
Windows 10, right?
Right. So it's using Liam, it was using Windows. So that's a platform as a service. When they say platform as a service, Microsoft, even Amazon will have as a service saying, I was saying a lot of my students have Macs. If they have Macs, they don't want maybe to put Windows on their own computer. So I want everyone to have Windows. So basically what the university did is they are clients of Microsoft. So they said to Microsoft, we want to have your service and infrastructure service. So they basically, you can think about it on demand, rented out in a way for just my class. Infrastructure meaning a computer with a certain amount of CPU, memory, and storage. Now you remember, Liam, it was quite slow, and the reason is the university didn't want to pay a lot for the CPU and the better hardware, and I didn't make a big deal because we were using it as almost a simulation. But the platform is using another platform like Windows as a service. And did we use in that example, Liam, did we use software as a service? What software do we use?
NinjaTrader.
NinjaTrader. So can you use NinjaTrader on premise? You can, but you can also use it software as a service that they had it installed on a server. Do I know where the server was? No. Do I care where the server was? Not particularly. If, Liam, we were actual traders, I would care. And let's say we were day traders, I would care where the server was. And especially if we were high frequency traders, I would care where the server was because I need to have fast turnaround, right? If I do high frequency and I blink my eyes, that's how fast I want the transaction to go. And you can even see in our part, when I was looking at even, right? That when this was my other class, but look at this one, right? This is my class. Is this, do we have, you see yourself even here, Liam, right? This is what? This has what? Latency to it. You see yourself here, it's at a different point than we're seeing it here because it's latent, right? If I go and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see my hands aren't going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's latent. So this is good enough for my lecture. If somebody was going to be outside of the class wanting to see the lecture, but it wouldn't be good enough for, notice, look how far behind it. It wouldn't be good enough for trade. So my idea here, when I have the platform, the infrastructure, my infrastructure, what I'm going to ask of one of my vendors is depending on what I need to have. If the hardware, I need to have a lot of, I need to have a fast CPU, I need to have a lot of memory, then I'll pay for it as I go. So you can think about it. If what I have due here is that I also have, and what are the types, infrastructure, platform, what are the uses of cloud computing, and what are the examples by industry, and possibly what is another idea you can add to those questions is give examples of what we did in class for cloud computing, like we did for NinjaTrader. The idea we used Wix, Liam. So is Wix software as a service?
I'm sorry.
Wix. Did you WIX for our project?
Yeah, I used it.
Is it software as a service?
I think so.
What do you have to ask yourself? What question, Liam?
Software as a service.
Basically, do you have to have internet access to get to it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. That's the one question, right? How they're serving it, who they're using Wix, we don't know. They may be using Amazon, they may be using Microsoft, they may be using themselves. Most likely, they're probably using someone to support them other than themselves. Then how does generative AI, how does it work? What are the benefits? What are the use cases? What are the concerns by this article? And then artificial intelligence by this article. What is AI? We have chapter 14 as well. What are the subfields? How does it apply? Okay. Here's this, it basically was the same. Monday we had ERP. ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. And you should, I think Spencer now has been written to everybody. You should have your websites. And if you have your websites, they look all right. Spencer will send out a code that you can upgrade and begin thinking about your domain name. Okay? And that is that part. So what I need to do is, and then you can check on it. Is
Also, the group zero is all set
the who?
for the group zero is all set for section.
Okay, thank you. I'll
section.
mention it. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So April 15th you have, and then let me make this available to you. I can see it, but now you should be able to see it. So in this case, I always want to be in your mode so I can see it. So Paige, tell me if you see April 17th. Do you see it, Paige?
Let me check right now. You mean on
Thank
my
you.
end or on your
On
screen?
your end, because I
Okay.
see it on my end. I want you to make sure that you have it, because sometimes what I do is I thought I clicked, but I didn't. You know what I mean? And I go into it and I'm real happy, and then you leave without seeing it.
Yeah, I see it.
Perfect. So write this is the review sheet that people were asking me for. What is the review for the open-ended? So on April 17th, we have in person in Stubblefield, the same room as we were for the first exam in 204. And basically, you need to bring your own laptop as well. You need to install respondents there just in case the computers don't work. You remember we had some issues, but hopefully we'll have the IT staff. I always expect issues. I always expect problems. I'm usually correct about that. But what's nice is I have backup and I have support. And those support people, they have a role that more than me. So you need to bring your laptop, you need to bring your pictured ID, bring your cane ID, your computer, and this is what exam 2 will cover. It will cover TG3, cloud computing, chapter 14, AI, chapter 10, ERP, chapter 12, analytics. Chapter 4 and 5 is a review from last time, the security and the data management. There'll be 2 open questions as well. So I suggest you download this docx. And let me see if I have this docx. And basically, let me see here in BTE210. I have this. So my docx, you can see here, will cover then chapters 4, 5, TG3, 10, 12, and 14. You can see in the beginning here, these are the same. You see this page? These are the exact same things that we covered before, right? The risk, exposure, threats, vulnerabilities, right? We're always having some risk in anything we do in life, right? As soon as there's a risk even before I'm born, but once I come out, right, to the world, there's always risk. There's the exposure to what risks I'm exposed to, what threats I have, how vulnerable I am. And what I want to do is I want to mitigate that risk. How do I mitigate that risk? By controls, putting up physical barriers, having access and communication. And where it becomes more so is in computing, right? If I don't go on the internet, I become vulnerable even more so when I get on the internet. The university, I'm sure, in terms of cybersecurity units there, would love us just not to be on the internet, but that is impossible to do any work without it, right? So basically, sometimes what they're asking some units in the university is to have what they call a virtual private network, a VPN. So that is different than the regular internet access, and that is a virtual one that's private, that is more secure than the regular internet. So you remember when I was talking about the private cloud computing, in private cloud computing, they use what they call a VPN as well. Okay. And basically, you can think about it, it's the same types of things that we talked about. These 2 columns are chapters 4 and 5 that we talked about. You remember, in this case, you can think about it, the data governance, right? The database approach, where I'm going to be putting all my data in managing in one place. The data files and the fields and the rows are called records. And then, of course, cloud computing, just like what we went over. Questions on that? Paige, you have any questions about these topics?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Right. And then the other part where we talk about the data management again is that data hierarchy. What I want to do in a data management is I definitely want to address certain problems, things that I need to, problems that what I need to maximize, what I minimize, the problems with database management system pages. When I put everything together in one area, I'm going to be more vulnerable that if somebody hacks that database, I don't have as much redundancy as I want. So security becomes more of an issue because all my data is more in one place, though I do want to have backup and recovery to do that. The whole idea with big data is the area of data mining, and that is usually dealt with in looking for patterns in the data. So basically, data mining is used for what we call big data. And what's great about big data is that I can find insights into my data to learn about my data that I, as part of that enterprise, was not familiar about. And then the idea of artificial intelligence and the difference of artificial intelligence versus traditional computing is that it's trying to mimic a human being. And then later on, we talked about machine learning, that in machine learning, we expect then the computer to start correcting itself and reducing the errors. And the idea of deep learning is, when we think about deep learning, is that's more complex than even regular machine learning. When we think about now the computer's doing natural language processing, it's doing computer vision, being able to distinguish in terms of deep learning. We talk about data mining, ways to look at the data, the dashboards, and we also talked about last time the enterprise. The enterprise is a large organization where what we do in enterprise resource planning is that we again try to give, not to be in a silo. A silo means that I just am in my own little world that I can then know more about the entire enterprise. So at this point, Haley, what is your major?
I'm a marketing major,
Marketing major. And what year are you, Haley?
a sophomore.
Sophomore. So if somebody came to me and they said they're looking for a female that's a marketing major in a sophomore, and they're looking to give a scholarship for a female to also do an internship and has a GPA, let's say, then of greater than 3.5, then it could possibly be say, I have no clue who that is. But if in this case, in the enterprise resource planning, would be able to query that, and I could be able to know that information. So for instance, there may be in ways in which class searching and things like that could be part of the enterprise. It could be, in this case, human resources could be part of the enterprise resource planning. And in this case, if we thought about it, Paige, do you think the future of enterprise resource planning is to include generative AI? What do you think, Paige?
Yeah, probably.
So for instance, someone asked me, for instance, they wanted me to give them their midterm grades, and they were going to be they were applying to another institution, and they wanted me to give this grades to another institution. And my question, Paige, is, I don't know what the policies are in the university. I work for the university, so I don't know what the policy. Am I allowed, you remember the need to know, am I allowed to share someone's midterm grade, which I don't even give out midterm grades, to another institution? So I thought to myself, that there must be, maybe there's a policy there. And first of all, define the policy. You think it's easy? Of course not. And there could be thousands of pages of policies. And do you think, you know me a little bit, do you think somebody like me would want to read that, 1,000 pages?
Probably not.
Probably not, for sure not. So wouldn't it be nice to have a Gen AI attached to the enterprise resource planning, and I could just type out or voice that this is the situation? Am I, as a full tenured professor, am I allowed to give out students midterm grades that are not official? So you can see those generative AIs can even look at the data that is within the organization. Right now, what do you think organizations are afraid of is sharing that data, that data will go into what? The internet. Because right now, a regular chat GPT or a Gemini are basically generic, and they're using the internet, but they're not, supposedly they're not going into that data, and that's what companies are afraid of. Can I keep my data and just use those tools? Transaction processing systems, you know, a transaction, anytime you go into, let's say, even Publix, and you stand in line or you do your own scanning, right? I can take a bottle of water, scan it, and that's a transaction. So there's transaction processing systems that are part of the inventory. So they have to be accurate, they have to be secure. And this TPS, which stands for Transaction Processing Systems, are put into a database. I get exception reportings. What's exception reportings? If I think about exception reporting, Julia, is what? Who's an exception? So if I thought about, I had a database of my test scores, what would be exception reporting for me? I'd get, maybe at the end, after everybody takes the test, next week I get exception report. What would it focus in on, you think, Julia?
Would it be choosing who could see the scores?
Well, let's say I could see the scores. Do I have permission to see all the scores? I do. So it would report, the system would report exceptions of all the tests. And who would be the exceptions? Those that did very, very well, Julia, and those that did what? Poorly. And supposedly these systems then could then, in the exception reporting, possibly give advice, right? If they were attached to like a Gen AI, give advice to those that did very well. Maybe we'll have them be teaching assistants of teaching assistants, right? We'll send out, let's say, Julia, let's say you were the top. We could send out to you something that says, Julia, would you like to work as Dr. Rush's assistant? Or maybe for next year. Or the exception would be on the lower end, those that weren't doing well. Basically, an exception reporting, maybe in the first test, maybe send it out and say, is there a problem? Maybe you should drop the class, right? Those are exceptions on both ends. And then this could be part of, then in ways, it could be a data warehouse. So Julia, the next question would be true or false, or even asking that question, a data warehouse, is that, or even A and B, is it real-time data or historical data? So what would you say? A is real-time, B is historical.
Is it historical?
Exactly. Right? Remember, it's always going to be historical. It's not going to be real time. Remember when we did the Ninja Trader, we said, give us real time and historical, mostly back testing. The way that we call it back is back in time. So that's historical. And why is that? I want to have my data historical that I don't need to use right now. It's not real time like inventory. And I can have data mining. I can have different systems look at my data and basically give me insights. Insights could be, basically, I could give my students, after they graduated, everybody got jobs. Let's say those that are really successful, that after 5 years they got promoted, or they were CEOs or CFOs. And basically, what's unique about those students in my data warehouse that succeeded very well. And it could be, it wasn't their GPA, it could be maybe the courses that they took. They took certain courses that seemed to make them successful versus a data mart. A data warehouse is a large part of my data. A data mart is just a part, like I'm going to take just a portion, let's say just my classes, to see how well they have done later on in their career in Gen AI or something. And the characteristics then of computing would be there. We've talked about privacy spyware, and then chapter 12 deals with business analytics. The whole idea of business analytics, what's going to be important, and let me see if I have my PowerPoint here. In business analytics, is this one right here. Let me just do this. Let me just this is important right here. Figure 12.3. So put in your notes here, figure 12.3 is good to review. Figure 12.3 is I have a business problem. And we can use it as a business problem. Could be like, Ninja, I don't know what stocks to invest in, or it may be, I don't know what Gen AI tools to use. And then basically here is data management, whatever data I have, and let's think about the stock market in this case, where I had all my information. I have some internal data for what I have in the organization, external data. Maybe I'm a university even, and I have my internal data. I know about my students, let's say my students' scores. And then external data could be, I could look at my competitor universities. And then I have some big data, and they call this ETL, which is transformational. It means I clean my data. And then I have a data warehouse. You remember that data warehouse with all my data starting, and this is the clear idea. On my data, put this in your note. On my data, I have 3 types of analytics. I have descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics. Let's think about the Ninja Trader idea. Descriptive statistics talks about the past. So you understand that, Samuel? Descriptive statistic analytics talks about the past and summarizes it. So even descriptive statistics could be my backtesting data. And what it's going to do is I'm going to be able then to describe it, and then maybe I'll look at data mining and look at patterns. This is decision support system. This is online analytical processing, or like pivot tables. I can break down my data, but this is in the past giving me some descriptive statistics. Even if I think about my own class, and you can relate to it, my own test, what does everybody ask me after they're anxious before the exam, right, Samuel? And then after the class, when they get back their grades, whatever it is, what do they always ask me? What's the average and what's the curve? Right? Are you going to curve? Are you going to curve? How many times a day? I could have had a Gen A. How many times? And what do I always say is maybe you don't want to need a curve, because a curve could mean basically normally distributed, that I have a few number of A's, a little bit more B's, the majority C's, some D's, and some F's. I could say maybe you don't want that curve. So this is in the past. So everybody asked me what was the average. That's descriptive statistics. Now, predictive analytics, Samuel, is thinking about the future. And that is, if somebody did a certain way on the first test, will that, in this case, will that then predict how well they will be doing in the second exam? Forecasting. Another way is when we think about the Ninja Trader, right? was we did back testing, and this is where some people got confused. The back testing just tells us how we did historically if we would have used that strategy, right? But it doesn't tell me about the forecast. How well does it predict? And that's really what people care about. You don't have to be a genius to figure out what happened in the past. You just look at it. What takes a genius many times is this forecast what's going to be in the future. And are we going to be 100% right? Of course not. But what do we want to do is we want to minimize what? We want to minimize our errors. And that's when we do, basically, when we think about machine learning or any of the others, or we think about deep learning, is that's what we do, is we train the models to reduce the errors. And prescriptive analytics thinks about it almost like when you go to a doctor, what's at the end? Everybody has been sick in the class here, and what do? They give you a prescription, right? They give you what you should do. Go home, rest, here, take these pills, whatever it is. Prescriptive could be also in the way that predictive. I think the stock is going to go what? Up, or it's going to go down, or it's going to stay the same. And the prescriptive is, I think we should buy, I think we should sell, I think we should not do anything. I think we should get out of the market completely. That's the prescription. And you can think about all these business analytics, what they're going to be doing. And notice here, increase powerful GPUs. Remember we talked about that? Higher volumes of storage, increase this. Neural networks, that's part of the analytics, that's part of the artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. And all this data, then this is part of artificial intelligence, and the generative AI will be giving this to us in voice format, or basically tell us what to do. And we can do the prompts. So all of this area of business analytics, guess what? That Gen AI is going to be on top of it, helping end users. It's, let's say, Samuel, you're not a statistician. You can then ask those questions that you would have about your data and get it to you as if there was a statistician. And the statisticians would be able, if they needed to program or use what they call SQL, do any of their work, it would help them. Drug discovery, all of that. You remember how we used to do in the analytics where it would go over 100 companies, remember, with one strategy. What I would want to do with generative AI is not go over one strategy. Let the system do what? Create its own strategies and come up with it. And then what would we do as persons is that we would massage it and say, hey, wait a minute, we understand here this NVIDIA or something with the Chinese, we could basically put in our 2 cents with it. And then we could get professionals around the world saying, we're going to add additional way. So those Gen AIs, what can they do? They can help us in many ways do all the tedious work. You want to do tedious work? No, I don't want to do tedious work. But what do I want? I want it to be accurate. I don't want it to be hallucination, that it comes up with completely incorrect information, or even part of it, or I don't know which part is real and which part is not real. Questions? Does that make sense, Samuel? Are there any questions that I need to know about? So this isn't the most important. That's the most important, I think, when you're reading through that business analytics chapter, that when I think about it, descriptive is describing. Give me an average, give me the standard deviation. Tell me, were most people, the average was, let's say 80, but there were the average was 80 because there were a few people that got zeros on the exam that brought down that 80, but most people really got 90, right? 90 and above, or otherwise. And predictive is tell me what I can predict. And that's what you want to do in business all the time. Do we know the answers of the future? Really, what business is about is basically think about the future. The past is gone. What the future is, think about the university. What do they want to do? They want to maybe, retain students, right? Because that's part of their revenue. Next semester, if all the students decided we're not going to stay, right, they're in deep trouble. So they have to even do some predictions on how many people they accept. It's like almost airlines, right? They accept more people than they know that are coming. And some semesters, guess what? They don't have enough room in the dorms, Samuel, because more people came. It's like a flight. Have you ever seen a flight where all of a sudden they pay people not to take the flight? Who ever heard of that, right? I mean, I should go to the airport, just hang out, and they're going to pay me, right? Because their predictive analytics didn't work that well. And that's what they want to do. They want to predict fraud, right? When they do a credit card, the bank is responsible, not me, not you as the credit card holder, the bank is. So they've done this for a long time. Basically, what? Patterns and what you're doing, prediction, and then they want to do prescription. What do we do? Hey, there was possible fraud. What do we want to do? We want to contact immediately you, Samuel, as the owner of that card and say, did you make this purchase? And sometimes it may be so, if I see rubles there instead of in dollars, the predictive analytics tells me just cut the card. Don't even ask. We know that we can see by airlines, Dr. Rush didn't go to Russia. It's not there. And that's what happened to me one time, is I had rubles I contacted them and I said, why am I seeing rubles? And immediately they didn't ask me anything. They said, your card has been shut down. Ruble ain't supposed to be there. And guess what? Their prescription is cut or card. Their prediction, if you see rubles, you know that it's done. And now you're probably not going to see rubles. This was a while back. It's going to be in some kind of crypto form, right? He's going to be doing some Bitcoin kind of thing. So here are the open-ended questions that we talked about. So this is how it is. What is machine learning? Also, what's the difference between machine learning and AI? You can get those from the what? From the articles, and guess what? I would do it from ask different Gen AIs on it. Ask Call Annie, ask Gemini, and ask ChatGPT and Copilot, and ask them and see what you're getting in terms of it. And then come back, Samuel, on Monday and say, this is not clear to me, or this is what I understand, but can you clarify this? So that's that part. So let me just stop sharing this for a moment and ask now, do I have any questions? So Paige, did that help?
Yeah, thank you.
So those are questions. So once you go through that, you can see what to do. So the nice thing, Paige, is 2 of the chapters you've already seen. So it's just kind of like review on that. And then I wanted just to concentrate that. And I'll concentrate chapter 10 and 12. I'll ask less questions on, because I think what's more important are these other chapters, right? Of the artificial intelligence and the cloud computing is more I would ask for. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want, let me share my screen, is let me minimize this. Minimize this too. Is go to your audit area. And let me just show you an example. What I'd like to make sure is I'm just going to go to group 0, which deals with Spencer. But what I want is everybody's group folder and change it now, rather than later, should have two folders. One was your project proposals or what you proposed. And then inside the final project should be what you had is what I approved. And then right under your final project should be your URL that's clickable, that works. And here you could even add to. Some of you haven't upgraded, so put your Wix site here and that it is clickable. You will get points taken off if your group does not follow this format. Why is this good? This way I can do it. You can look at other groups. For instance, I can look at this project, right? And I can see already, this is Daniel from another class. He already has, right, making sure it's Daniel. He used what I want in your site too. If you use, which is nice, you use any image that has been generated by AI. Notice I want it to be referenced. Most people don't reference it. I want you to reference it since you're going to be showing off Gen AI. I want you to be showing your audience there what image was generated. He put generated with DALL-E by OpenAI. I'd even have him put what prompt created this. That would be nice to have. Then he put the home. Then he has about, right, our team. And then he has a description, which I like, of what he is, what is his role, about him, right? Looks professional. It's not him and with the guys on the beach. The free courses that he's offering. And he has he may be working on it. He has the somehow this is not coming out. I don't know why, but I saw it before. Has his free courses. Even you can get Gen AI to put in possible syllabus or possible outline of those free courses. He may even be working on this now. And then the video. He has Claude versus Grok versus ChatGPT, explore the live information capabilities. When you're even trying out some of this, record what you're trying out. Put your picture in there, just like we do, so it can be, so this is his first one that he's created already. He has frequently asked questions. He's starting the help center and contact. So you can review that is when, and he's working on it. You know, and every week I'm giving feedback. But these are kind of things that you can see. Questions? So let me stop sharing. So you asked me on Monday what's not clear to you. You got it? Questions? So Audrey, how are we doing? Do you have any questions? Good. Thumbs up. I always love those thumbs up. Hopefully I try to do the best I can. So let's do this. I'll do attendance now. Stay with me if you have any issues, anything, always anything personal. It's always the need to know. Other people don't need to know it. I'll turn off my links as well, my recordings. And Spencer, stay with me. We'll just kind of talk about next week and how we'll proceed there. Okay? And hopefully everybody is okay and stay healthy. So let me share my screen. Let me go to my attendance. Let me do check-in. Check-in. Start check-in. 4438. Thank you, Audria and Samuel, for moderating. And thank Spencer as well for getting in touch with everybody and helping out. So stay with me if you have questions. Otherwise, I'll see you. Have a safe weekend. Mitigate your risk, right? In a certain way. Okay? All right. So I'm gonna, everybody got it? 4438. Michelle, Patrick, you got it?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is so slow. I'm waiting for it to let me do it. Okay, yeah, I think it worked. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. And Patrick? Are you there? 4438. So I'm gonna leave check-in, but I'm just gonna stop sharing. Okay, so Patrick is not, and Jan. I don't know if sometimes people log out and it still keeps them there. So Spencer, let me just stop recording.